Hello everyone, I am the Editor Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. On this episode of Barkeep Upkeep, I'm going to show you even more add-on variants for your Commander games, particularly Commander parties and Clue. If you like any of these cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel at no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You could also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always just support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. It's crazy how fast time flies. A little over 4 years ago, I put out a video showcasing add-on variants that you can incorporate to your Commander games. I discussed Vanguard, Arch Enemy, Plane Chase, Explorers of Ixalan, and even the Horde challenge decks from the first Theros block and Garruk the Slayer. Super bummed by the way that we didn't get a 4th challenge deck for Theros Beyond Death, but I digress. If you want a brief guide on how to play with those add-ons, you can see that ancient video in the link above. I suggest you see that video either before or after this one, since there's a reason for me putting out this video. One of the things I'm doing as an invited content creator at MagicCon Chicago is hosting Commander games with add-on variants. This means that, should you find me and bring enough players to form a pod, you can play any combination of those add-on variants with me. Want to play Commander mixed with Plane Chase and Explorers of Ixalan? You got it. Just want to play the supervillain rumble of Arch Enemy? I'm your content creator. I can even quote-unquote DM your Commander game by piloting any combination of the challenge decks against you and your friends, whether in a 3-player or 4-player pod. These are just some of the experiences I'll be providing at MagicCon. However, I'll also be providing even more add-on variants, which is the purpose of this video, which is a sort of sequel to the previous one. First, let's go over Ravnica Clue Edition. While the product is meant to be a self-contained experience where you crack packs a la Jumpstart to build your decks to play, you can also use the Clue supplements to play this with constructed decks as well. That way you can add it to your Commander games. Specifically, you want the evidence cards, evidence notepad, case file envelope, and the hidden info screens. This is because the setup is exactly like a game of Clue. First, separate the evidence cards into suspects, weapons, and rooms. Shuffle each pile and place the top card from each pile into the case file envelope. Then reveal the top 2 rooms cards and place them aside. Afterwards, shuffle all evidence cards together and deal them face down to each player. I'm going to go over a side note here before continuing. If you're playing with the evidence cards provided by Ravnica Clue Edition, these cards are entirely separate from the game and function just like the regular game of Clue. They're not in your hand, can't be cast, etc. Their function for this add-on is solely to play Clue as you play Magic. That being said, you could also just do the same with an actual game of Clue. You can take the evidence cards and other resources and set up your game as previously explained. Just keep in mind to use the same notepad as that version of Clue because it will have different characters, weapons, and rooms when compared to Ravnica Clue Edition, or even other versions of Clue. Alright, going back to the setup, give each player a sheet from the evidence notepad, a hidden info screen, and something to start with. Now that the game is set up, let's go over the rules to play the variant. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you must make a suggestion. You say, I suggest that the crime was committed by some suspect with the whatever weapon in the whichever room. The defending player must show you one of the cards you named if they have one. If that player has multiple, they choose which one to show you. If you dealt combat damage to multiple players, then the player to your left is the one who would reveal any cards they might have. If that player doesn't have any cards to show you, the next player to the left does so, and so forth until a defending player dealt combat damage shows you a card. However, you can also make suggestions even if you didn't deal any combat damage to a player. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't made a suggestion, you may exile cards with total mana value 6 or greater from your graveyard to do so. If you make a suggestion this way, the player to your left reveals a card if they have one. If not, it goes around the table as before. Now, when a player reveals an evidence card to another player, they create a treasure token. Also, if you lose the game, reveal your evidence cards to all players. When it comes time to make the final accusation, you do so at the beginning of your end step. After any suggestions have been made, you take your accusation in the same way. I accuse some suspect of murdering Guildmage Body with the whatever weapon in the whichever room. Keep in mind that you can only make one accusation per game. After you make the accusation, secretly look at the cards in the envelope. If they make your accusation, you reveal them and win the game. If not, you return them to the envelope and can no longer make any accusations. You don't lose the game, but still participate revealing your evidence cards per usual, etc. You'll now have to win the game the good old-fashioned way. This might seem a bit complicated if you've never played Clue before, but you'll get the hang of it fairly quickly as you play. Just use your deduction and logic skills to win via a fun and cool alternate win con. As for the Commander Parties, these are add-ons exclusive to WPN stores. The Commander Party is a guided Commander event where the store hosts and oversees it. These events began with Innistrad Double Feature and continued through Dominaria United, The Brothers' War, All Will Be One, March of the Machine, The Lord of the Rings, Walls of Eldraine, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and Murders at Karloff Manor as of the recording of this video. If your LGS is a WPN store, you should have been able to play these events there. If not, hopefully they still have the resources to provide you the experience should you ask for it. If not, you can find these resources online at Wizards of the Coast WPN website, as well as how to play with them. However, as for this video's purposes, I will only go over how to play with the following Commander Parties, since these will be the ones I'll be hosting at the upcoming MagicCon Chicago. So let's start with Phyrexia All Will Be One. These are 5 Praetor cards. Players choose one at the start of the game. If you want to keep it fair, have players roll dice to see who gets first pick and so forth. However, don't be mean and choose Sheoldred if someone else is playing Mono Black, and so forth. You could hand them out at random, but that wouldn't be helpful since you might have a player unable to use their Praetor card. These cards are like emblems in that no one can interact with them at all, they can't be targeted, etc. Even if the game were reset or you were to enter a sub-game, you still have your Praetor cards. Each of these cards reward you for casting spells aligned with their color. They all trigger in the same way, but their differences lie in the abilities they have as their counters increment. Again, these are like emblems, so you can't proliferate, remove, or otherwise interact with their counters, etc. This is one of the simplest Commander Parties to implement in a Commander game. Next up is March of the Machine. The setup is similar to All Will Be One in that players choose a plain card before the game begins. Here's an example of a plain card. The top image is the front side of the card. That is the side you start the game with. There are 7 plain cards total, so you can hand one out to each player at random, or you can roll dice to see who gets first pick and so forth. Each plain card has different requirements for flipping over. As before, you can't interact with these cards, you can't target them, etc. They're essentially emblems. Once they're flipped, you get their effect. In this example, the bottom half of the image is the backside of the plain card. Depending on the type of deck you're playing, you would choose the plain card that best synergizes with your deck. The next 3 have a play aid that accompanies the add-on, in this case, the Lord of the Rings. These are the Rings of Power. However, before seeing how this works, there are 4 faction cards that accompany this play aid. Here are 2 of them, Dwarves and Humans. The other 2 are Elves and Hobbits. Just as before, you can have players choose these at random or roll dice to see the order in which players can choose them. The cards have a front side and a back side, which is the Temptation side. And, as already seen, these are essentially emblems that you can't interact with. For each of them, you choose a ring after your draw step. The rings being what we saw in the player aid, which we'll return to in a bit. Their unique ability triggers whenever a commander enters the battlefield. If it's your own commander, you get a bonus. When you become tempted, you flip the card into its Temptation side. Here, as before, you follow what the card says. If you meet the requirements, you can flip the card back to its regular side. As for choosing a ring, that means that you choose one of the rings on the play aid. Each one has a different ability as seen on the screen. When a player places the last counter on a type of ring, the ring's effect happens as normal and their faction card turns to the Temptation side. And that's pretty much it. After your draw step, you choose a ring and its ability happens. Then, if that was the final ring of that type, your card flips to the Temptation side, and each card has a different ability from each other. Walls of Eldraine is another one of the simplest ones. The play aid provides a space for you to play the story cards in a shuffled face-down pile on the right side of the book. Then, so long as a commander has been cast that game, you can turn over new stories. The first time during your turn is free, and then each one costs 1 generic mana afterwards. Here are some examples of story cards. Their effects happen as they're face up. Once the pile is depleted, you shuffle them up and then put the pile back on the right side of the book. In this case, the flavor text is above the rule text. For this commander party, nothing is handed out to players as part of the setup. You just place the play aid in the center of the table and set it up. That's it. The last one I will be discussing in this video is Lost Caverns of Ixalan. For this one, players place a marker at the topmost level of the play aid, Araska. Then, as the game progresses, if you meet the requirement to go to the next level, you choose which faction within that level to place your marker on. For example, at the beginning of your end step, if you cast a spell with at least 3 CMC or attacked at least 2 opponents that turn, you advance to an unoccupied space below. If the Dusk Legion is unoccupied, you can place your marker there if you wanted to. Doing so has you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, and so on for the next levels. Now, when you reach the final level, Chainless Inner Sun, you get to claim an unclaimed god card. This commander party has 6 god cards. Here's an example of one of them. As before, these are essentially emblems that you can't interact with. Once you have them, you have their abilities for the rest of the game. And those are the commander parties that I will be hosting at MagicCon Chicago. If you and your playgroup want to play with me, seek me out. I should be doing these events at Content Creator Central. However, if you don't have the time to play, you can always come say hi, take a picture, get your passport stamped, or get a Commander Tavern sticker and or custom treasure tracker. It'll be my first MagicCon, so it'd be fun to see fans of the channel. Let me know if you're attending Chicago. To all you viewers, which of these add-ons seemed the most interesting to you? What about the add-ons from the previous video? Let me know in the comments. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons of the Brewers for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of Barkeep Upkeep on the Commander Tavern. I am the Meta Kirby, and thanks for listening.